retailers are kind of starting to do some shady things. You know, you buy a bottle of Advil and then there's a private label brand that looks exactly the same and it's 20% cheaper, right? All of a sudden, my channel becomes my competitor. I think brands are just becoming more and more aware of any data I can take closer to my chest, any relationship with the consumer I could take closer to home is going to be beneficial. So a lot of entrepreneurs or like high-performing individuals, we just think like, oh my God, there's no way I can take a day off. Everything will crumble. Like, it's my startup, it's my company, it's my brand new role. Like, I can't. You can stop. Diversity is really important. Diversity in experiences, diversity in opinions, diversity in backgrounds. Like, there's no point in having two Maries.
Welcome to the Generation Hustle Podcast, the show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host Amin, alongside my good friend Sherston. On episode 35, we sit down with the founder and CEO of Sampler, Marie Chevrier. Fun fact, she's also my boss. So picture this, you're walking through Costco and we all know a part of the experience is those free samples. But wait, what if you have dietary restrictions? Or the sample is just something you'd never use? And how will the brand providing you those samples ever get in touch with you, the consumer? This is the question Marie asked herself, which helped her found Sampler, the leader in building personalized sampling experiences for consumers while brands understand and reach their targeted customer. We learned more about Marie's journey in building Sampler and the issue with retail today, how to effectively build culture within a growing company, and why taking time off is so important for your well-being. This was a wonderful opportunity to get to know Marie, and we really hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Marie. So many of you guys might know she's also my boss. So it's wonderful to have you on. She runs Sampler, and it's an amazing organization. So let's have some fun. Awesome. So let's just get right into it. So one of the things I've personally noted while working at Sampler is there's an emphasis on obviously making a great workplace and making it enjoyable. So one, I want to first ask you, like, what's your definition around culture and why is it so important for companies to have an emphasis on building great culture?
Yeah, culture is like such a catch-all word, right? But for me, the biggest like learning building a company has been that when you build a place where people like to come to work, their contributions just end up being so much greater. And so it's a win-win for everyone. And I mean, at the end of the day, like it just kind of goes back to basics. Like, why wouldn't we want to build a place where like people want to go to? So it's something that just came quite naturally for us. I think like we've always seen the building of our culture as kind of an organic movement, if you will. And I think you kind of see it with even the initiatives that we have. So like Sampler has an employee-led values committee, which basically is focused on making sure the company stays true to its core values. And again, it's coming organically from the team saying like, hey, maybe we should do a like spring shape up challenge, which popped up yesterday, right? And it was like all night, everyone was like sharing their spring like shape up goals. And I was like, this is so cool. I had absolutely nothing to do with this. And like, it's people that are just kind of saying like, this is what I expect out of my work. I expect to be able to share some of my personal fitness goals, and they put it together, and like we created a space where they can. So for me, culture needs to be organic.
That's awesome. And how do you think like the hiring process also fits into that? Because let's talk maybe like the early days of Sampler. You may not have had an idea of what the culture would have turned out to be, but in terms of like hiring the correct individuals and maybe getting the right kind of, I guess, personality to fit in to what you're trying to build, how important is that?
Yeah, it's funny because to be honest, I think I was not the best at like early on at hiring. Like I think I made a lot of the common mistakes of like, you want to hire someone that kind of like that you could be friends with, someone that like looks like you, someone that like maybe thinks like you, because it just feels comfortable. And I remember like one of the big turning points was when I made our first kind of senior hire, which is Eric, who's still on our team. Eric joined at the time as a product, and, here was a guy who had like, I don't know, like double year, like, I don't know, 20 at the point at that time, like 15 to 20 years of like tech experience. And it was so uncomfortable for me to hire him because I felt like he was interviewing me. Like, why would this really experienced guy want to join my company and help me? Like, we literally work out of a closet. Like, it was like it was a really intimidating moment. But at that moment, we made the shift from complementing each other's skills to actually like just kind of adding more of the same. And I think that that kind of mind shift is really important. So for us, like diversity is really important, and diversity in experiences, diversity in opinions, diversity in backgrounds, like because there's no point in having two Maries. There's no point in having two Emmons. Like you need people that come and complement each other. So I always ask people when they're writing job descriptions for our team, I say, what is it that you're trying to get off your plate? And what is it that you're trying to complement? And typically that brings in, a really good mix of people.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, Marie, are we at 38 individuals now as of, or 43?
I think it's 42.
Okay, 42. So, I
Nice.
mean,
I can't
yeah, I think,
back, but it'll be six.
yeah, I think we've doubled, right? Over like a year or something,
Yeah,
something
like
like
that.
that. So,
Yeah, and it'll be six
and
by April. Yeah.
that's awesome. And with that growth, I think one of the toughest parts is keeping the culture consistent across the organization. So, what are your best tips for our CEOs or even other like senior leaders for kind of managing and keeping your culture the same?
Well, so early on, we decided that like about maybe 2 years ago now, we decided to sit with the team and think about what makes working at Sampler special, and we came up with values and a mission that still to this day like has stayed alive because it was something that we together came up with. And so what was really cool about that exercise is we hired an external consultant, and the first thing she did is she kicked me out of the room and was like, "You don't belong in this decision," and really didn't want me to influence it, which I thought was pretty cool. So, anyways, fast forward several years later, these values are still guiding us. What I'll say is like the founder, like based on that and based on my experience, since the founder can't be the one trying to like beat the drum of this culture, like you need help. And so I think hiring a people operations manager has been a really, really good investment for Sampler, like to make sure there's someone whose like entire focus is keeping this culture alive. Exactly. Yeah, she does an incredible job, and you know that could be a dedicated person. But before Maya joined, what we also did is we had our head of operations, Shanazi, kind of take this on. So it doesn't need to be a dedicated person. It could be an operations person who takes on HR. It could be a finance person that takes HR. Who knows, right? There's probably a person well suited. Um, but having a dedicated person that is not the founder driving HR, I think, is important. And then again, employee led or team led initiatives like our committee, I think, are really, really good.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great point there in what you mentioned with the founder not pushing the culture down your throat. It should be the employees, and that's a sign that your culture is good, right? Your employees are living it every day. And I think Amin actually mentioned this recently. You guys had like a dance party or something similar to that, or I might be messing that up.
Musical bingo, musical bingo.
That's
Musical bingo, right. So I think those are great examples of what you guys are doing, right?
that was the most fun. And again, like I had like this is the blessing of being at this point in like a founder's journey of like, you know, you show up to this thing and someone wonderful came up with this great concept and invited, like what was kind of cool is Maya had not only invited um the team, but she said bring a plus one or plus two, whatnot, and people were like inviting their moms or their partners. Everyone was like dancing. It was the best time, and it was again, it was like organic. It was organic. It felt natural. It felt like it was something, you know, something a friend organized, not necessarily something that was like, you know, forced onto anyone. So anyway, I thought it was really neat.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And that kind of brings me to the topic that I wanted to discuss with mental health, because I feel like the culture really drives how your employees are engaged and how they feel on the job. But something that's come up through our research of your background is that you've shared your own personal stories of your mental health journey. So can you walk us through that and kind of explain to us some of the things that you experienced around burnout and things in your early career or later on as you were working with Sampler?
For sure. I mean, for me, I'm a very transparent individual, and transparency is like come out in the values that the team put out when we did decide on values, and that was really cool to see. And so I always lead with transparency. I always lead with my heart. So when I did kind of hit a wall, which was about now like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and felt burnt out, I felt like there was no way I could hold that story back because it's just who I am. I needed to share it. And I feel like there's such a taboo around mental health that I really wanted to be part of the people who would change that. So yeah, so I wrote a blog post or a LinkedIn post about it. But ultimately what happened is that um, like while work was busy, work is always busy. Like it wasn't more busy, it wasn't more crazy, it was just a regular kind of time building a business. But what I started seeing was that I was starting to lose memory a little. So I would sit in a meeting and I would be like, hey, did we talk about this? And they would be like, yeah, like the team would be like, yeah, we just talked about that. And like just kind of these like little moments where you're like, wow, I'm not all there right now. Like my concentration is not there. I'd also find myself like all overly tired, like sleeping 8 hours and still feeling like I could sleep another 10. I started having headaches. I started having like crying spells, which was really weird. Like just like literally like for no reason in the middle of the day, just feeling like I needed to go into a stand up room and cry, like, which was, I'm not a super like emotional person. So it felt really, really weird. Um, so yeah, so that's when I knew that, you know, something was wrong and I needed to take a break. And so my biggest advice is if you're starting to feel some of these physical or mental symptoms, you have to stop. And like you have to stop now. And the problem is that a lot of entrepreneurs or like high performing individuals, we just think like, oh my God, there's no way I can take a day off. Like everything will crumble. Like it's my startup, it's my company, it's my brand new role. Like I can't, you can stop. If I can stop for a month, you can stop. So stopping was like the first step. And in order to stop, you have to seek help. You have to ask around, you know, for your team to say, hey, you know, I'm not feeling good. You have to be vulnerable and you have to say, I need you to cover for me, right? So I was very vulnerable with my leadership team. I told them exactly what was going on, and the level of compassion that I got from them was just so incredible, and it made us closer. It made us, stronger. So yeah, those would be kind of the first kind of few steps, I would say. And anyways, I ended up after a month feeling rejuvenated. I had the opportunity to actually travel during this time. I like fully disconnected. I went to Israel, had a bit of a spiritual trip, which was really helpful. But you don't need to go to Israel to disconnect. But for me, it just like worked out really well that I just had vacation planned and use that time to fully disconnect. So yeah, it's it's a crazy journey, and I don't expect it. I don't expect it'll be the last time that I deal with that. Like we're just putting ourselves through so much, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that you can't avoid and it's going to keep coming back. And I guess it's something that you have to adjust to over and over again. So, to that point, like, and maybe you can speak from your experience as well and how you kind of connected with your leadership team. How do you think more leaders in the space, especially in the tech community, because that's kind of where this tends to be a bit more over the top of that work as much as you can culture? How can leaders kind of take a more serious approach and be more open to these discussions and kind of recognizing these patterns with their employees, or making a more manageable situation for them?
I mean, I want to say first, like, it's a huge responsibility and it's not easy. And I feel like I think we need to say that, like, because it's one thing to be like, hey, like, look at all the great things that we're doing, but like, there's it's not easy, and it's really hard to prioritize sometimes because there's so many things to prioritize. But especially right now, um, it is almost like a requirement. It's like it's table stakes. Um, it's just as important as supporting sick days or supporting, like the basics. It's everyone is going through some level of mental health concern right now, whether it's like balancing family life or whatnot. So what my advice is, because it's so hard, again, try and get this initiative to be as team led as possible, because it's a very sensitive project. It's a very sensitive subject. So my favorite is a pulse survey, which is a very simple like first step, right? So um, sending a note to everyone and starting with the question, how are you doing, right? Which sounds really silly, but if you do this in a very anonymous place, people will feel comfortable telling you, like, actually, I'm feeling like 1 out of 5 right now. And a 1 out of 5 is like a great indicator that, hey, maybe we need to do something. And then you'll ask more pointed questions like, um, how do you feel your work contributes to your day-to-day stress? What could we do to help? Like, so again, just don't feel like you need to have all the answers, because the reality is that if you try, you'll probably bring in your own biases, right? And so it sounds like a cop out to be like, what should we do? But it's actually like a really productive thing to do. Um, so maybe that's where I would start.
No, that's great. I think I definitely agree, especially on the transparency point. Being, being, I'm speaking from the employee standpoint. Sometimes it's easy to feel guilty or even feel afraid to ask for that time off, especially with everything going on right now while we're working from home. It almost feels like we shouldn't be asking for vacation. So I think those open discussions, or even just having a survey where we can anonymously answer, like, "Hey, I'm not feeling well." I think that's it starts a conversation there.
And the number of times in the last year that I have had to tell people, hey, reminder, it's a good time to take vacation. I know there's not much to do, but you're accumulating vacation days anyways, and you should be taking care of yourself. I don't care if you Netflix and chill all day, just take a day off. Like, and it's interesting because every time I say it, and I try and say it at least once a month, you'll see immediately there's bookings. Like I see our, because we have an online system, I'll see like 5 people book the next Friday off, and I'm like, yes, like it's just these like gentle reminders. And even though I keep reminding people, you're right. I think people just feel like, oh, is it really necessary? Like I have nowhere to go. Um, but that's really, it's like, even if you have nowhere to go, not stopping for months is really, really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And that was going to be my next question, just kind of on the topic of COVID and everything like that. How, what your tips would be for if you are trying to take time off. But you mentioned it there. I think Netflix and chill is top of mind for everyone, right? Just hang out and do nothing.
Yeah, I mean that, or like give yourself um, a day to work on a project for yourself, for your family, right? Whether it's like organizing the kids like summer clothes, whatever it is. Like I feel like we all need like things that make us feel like we're contributing to our own personal goals. Like
Right.
so easy to work so hard right now, and it's like, when is there time for me, when is there time for my family? So even if it's just that.
For sure. Yeah. I think on that note, for us, it's the podcast in terms of just reaching out to people and understanding their journeys and things like that. So I think that's an incredible way to kind of take that into account. So um, let's kind of continue on with that. Let's talk about samplers. So, which is why we had you on the podcast to kind of explain your background with that and see where that's going. So, what is Sampler? What are you accomplishing? And can you talk to us about what the organization is doing?
Yeah, so one of the big trends that was accelerating digital sampling anyways was the move to e-commerce. So obviously like categories like fashion had moved like significantly to e-com, but categories like in CPG, there were some categories lagging. So cosmetic would have been like first moving to e-com, but slowly we started seeing snacks and beverage and personal care, moving to digital, moving to e-com. And as those categories move to e-com, then as a marketing manager, my job is less to move to get people to go in store to pick up the product, and more to get people to build behavior with online ordering. And online ordering and sampling online is basically the same behavior, except the first time you try, it's free, right? So I think the shift to e-com was a large trend that was already accelerating our space. The second trend is I don't know if you know this, but if you're in CPG or not, you might find it really interesting how many dollars go into supporting moving product in stores, right? So we call that shopper marketing dollars. So imagine your brand, you get listed into Sobeys finally, and you're so excited, and then Sobeys is like, in order to be listed here, you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to move your product and to drive awareness for it. So shopper marketing what has been like kind of this long-standing trend where brands would spend as much as 50% of their entire marketing budget into supporting sales in those stores. So that behavior, that shopper marketing spend, also started getting challenged in the last few years because brands were going D2C, brands were going direct to consumer, and then also because retailers are kind of starting to do some shady things. Like, love retailers, but if you've ever like actually I'm sorry, but
I don't know what you're talking about, but
but like you buy a bottle of Advil. You go to buy a bottle of Advil, and then there's a private label brand that looks exactly the same, and it's 20% cheaper, right? So all of a sudden my channel becomes my competitor. So I think brands are just becoming more and more aware of any data I can take closer to my chest, any relationship with the consumer I could take closer to home is going to be beneficial. So yeah, D2C is the other one.
For sure. Yeah. I think the retail market is always shifting and changing. I'm trying to watch my words here. And so there's a lot of things we always have to consider and stay on top of. So in terms of sampler, what do you see in terms of where you're scaling the business and what you see with the future of samplers?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the fact that I feel like Sampler is in the driver's seat of this space. I believe that um, contactless sampling, direct to consumer sampling, digital sampling, I don't care what you call it, we were first to market with it. And we have a very unique approach about how we're going to grow, and it's really exciting. So I'm excited to be in the driver's seat. Like, there's something really, really cool about remembering that 7 years ago I was one of those people that was like, how is not no one thought about this? And I was creating my first Photoshop mock-up, and 7 years later, it's like we're a big team, and we have an opportunity to define a market. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm really excited about defining the market. I'm also really excited about building a Canadian company with large ambition and great, great, great talent. So those are kind of the two things that fuel me for sure.
Yeah, and maybe a fun question here is like, what's been the hardest and most rewarding part of being a founder and leader of a growing company?
Hmm. Hardest. Um, I think I actually think it's the like your own personal learning curve, right? Like your own growth. Um, you you really you have to go from the scrappy salesperson who gets that first contract to the person who raises the first $1 million to the person who
Yeah.
hires the first senior hire to the person who is now the director of a board to the person who inspires to, like, you have to wear so many hats. Um and to be honest, like, I haven't been ready for many of those hats along the way, and I think that that's
Right.
completely fine. But yeah, I found my way. So I'm just like, I'm so proud of my own personal journey, and it's the hardest and the most rewarding. So I think that would be.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome way to put it. And I kind of purposely let Cheriston ask what sample is all about because I guess I was doing a terrible job trying to explain it to him. So I let Marie kind of teach you, Cheriston, there.
Yeah,
In
no,
terms of just like the future as well, retail is also changing, and we want the retailers to embrace technology. So one of the things you do outside of obviously running Sampler and now being a mom soon coming, you're the co-host of Retail TO, a community dedicated to growing and strengthening Toronto's like retail ecosystem. So, can you kind of talk a bit about what Retail TO is like all about, and what do you kind of see as like some of the biggest challenges that you're kind of addressing for retailers and or brands within the space?
Yeah, love it. Yeah, so Retail TO is a series that was put in place by Tech TO. So if you're not familiar with the organization Tech TO, check them out, techto.org. It's a really, really cool group. The team there hosts content. Now it's all virtual, on an ongoing basis for Toronto-based companies, but also like Canada-wide. And the idea is that it connects entrepreneurs. So they have a lot of like talks that will be about like uh, Michael Sorbini's is like experience building a company, or like Marie Chevrier talking about like partnering with big brands. And so I was really attracted by their community because it brings like thousands of people. And so I reached out to them and I said, listen, I think there's a really large emerging group of entrepreneurs in retail. And by retail, I mean, it could be retail tech, but also CPG. Like, I don't know how many people realize, but when the pandemic hit, Sampler put together a list of CPG brands founded in Toronto, and that could be across like any category. We had over 120 brands that actually came up. So, great companies like La Di Da sauces. Who else? Uh, what's Good Food for Good. Anyways, Snack Conscious. There's so many. So I knew that there was this community that was kind of bubbling up, and I pitched them on it, and they said, yeah, let's start a retail meetup. So before COVID, we would meet up in person. It was, I believe, every quarter, and it's a live event, and we would have panel discussions with some leaders in retail. And what was really nice to see is that although many of the speakers were from startups, it was in the audience. It was like Canadian Tire and Walmart and Loblaw that were showing up and looking for advice from the startup community. And I think that created a really cool synergies for these small companies because they could connect with those large leaders at the event. So really, really, really cool. So now we do it online with COVID.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, that's an awesome way to, I guess networking is one of the most powerful tools for any business. Can you speak to the emphasis of networking that you've kind of built out and why it's so important for a founder or even any individual going through the career?
For sure. So, I mean, I always say that my network has definitely been like the biggest gift that keeps on giving, right? So whether it's you joining early on, like a pre accelerator, joining an accelerator, joining like a community in your vertical, you have to do those first steps because the people I met in my like pre-accelerator program are still, building businesses, and we're sharing notes like, what's your like where do you get your insurance, like your payroll system, like things like that. And it's like simple things but so helpful. And I always say, like, I call them like cheerleaders, but the people that I connected with early and that I added value to continue to add value and are cheerleaders in the market for us all the time. And you need those cheerleaders. You need people that, like, when people say looking for a new way to connect with consumers, they say sampler, right? So you need that. So yeah, it's your job as a founder. How are you building your network? And building your network doesn't mean just like having a bunch of coffees. It means you need to give time and contribute to your community. And, it goes both ways.
I think a lot of people lose sight of that. Just like, hey, I had one coffee with the person and, ooh, they're going to be best friends with me. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, let
Trust
me
me,
ask
like
you
early
your name.
on.
Yeah, it doesn't work
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. It doesn't work like that. So I mean, I'm guilty of that, like maybe early on, where it's just like I had one coffee and so can you introduce me to like the hiring manager or something like that? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. So I mean, that kind of caps off like the bulk of the podcast. Something we always love to do is end with a lightning round. So it's a few fun little questions, and you'll have, like I say, 5 to 10 seconds to answer each one. So let's go for it. First question: favorite book of all time?
Ooh, Seth Godin, Purple Cow.
I've know Seth Godin, but I haven't read that book. So it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, it's all about how to
Uh,
create a product or brand that stands out, like a purple cow.
okay,
Really good.
sweet. Next question: how do you like unwinding after a busy day at Sampler?
So I meditate. Yeah, just like a 30-minute meditation. I really like Insight Timer. It's a really good app. So that's what I do.
Yeah, seems to be a trend amongst, I guess, tech
Yeah.
the tech community. We've been getting a lot of those answers from our guests as well.
Yeah.
It,
I took a meditation
uh,
training, like a class
yeah.
to become a teacher. And it was really rewarding.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Sweet. That's sweet. That's awesome. Something that I didn't know about Marie. So
You're gonna
good
have to
fact
run
right
some
there.
meditation classes at Sampler or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I don't think the CEO teaching meditation is very very self.
uh, okay. If you were to have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh God. All right. I should have thought about this. I feel like you said this, and I wanted to think. I, I actually think I would have dinner for sure with my grandmother, who passed
Mm-hmm.
away quite some time ago, and like didn't have a chance to see me like grow up as a woman. I would love her to be able to see everything that
Yeah,
I've
that's
accomplished
beautiful.
and she's inspired me to do.
That's sweet. That's sweet. And last but not least, we always throw this little controversial question in for our guests. Do you like pineapple on your pizza?
Yes, I do. I do.
Oh.
And I actually, that was a big craving of mine because as you're saying, I'm pregnant right now, and it was a craving in the beginnings. And it's funny, it became quickly an aversion. So I believe I still do when I'm not pregnant.
Okay.
But while I was pregnant, I kind of hated Hawaiian pizza in the end. So
we have a we have a running tally going on, so maybe we'll have to update this after you have the baby. You might update your preference here, but
Yeah.
yeah, okay, you can put
Yeah.
it down for don't like it right now.
Woo! It broke the streak again, so that's good. So we were literally at like 7 no's or 6 no's, and then we had 2 yeses, and Marie broke it again. So I'm kind
Yeah,
of happy on that one.
yeah.
I'm not. I don't do fruit on pizza. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So I'm with you on that. But Marie, thank you so much. We enjoyed this podcast. We're looking forward to seeing the growth of Sampler, and obviously, with Amin working there as well, we want to see what you guys are headed for in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. This was so much fun, and congratulations on the podcast. Super useful resource, and yeah, excited to have been part of it.